You've lived a great life and done well for yourself. But what mark will you leave on the world? How will you inspire future generations? Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand have helped thousands of people answer exactly those questions. If you've ever wondered, what will be my legacy? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Stan and Katie Beth.
Welcome back to the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast with your host, Katie Beth Hand. My guest today is the CEO and founder of Women Worth and Wellness, Nancy Griffin. Nancy, thank you so much for jumping on with me today.
Katie, thanks so much for inviting me. This is a real pleasure.
Absolutely. So before we dive in and talk a lot about women worth and wellness, I was hoping you would take a few minutes and tell our listeners a little bit about your background and really kind of what inspired you to start this organization. So tell us a little bit about you, Nancy.
Okay. Well, I won't go into the first career and all those configurations, but I was recruited into wealth management by this woman who basically did a 180 degree. I was headed in one direction. We were having coffee and she said, Nancy, I don't know why you think you want to spend 20 of your next years doing that. I think you should take a look at wealth management, because she'd been given a bag load of money as a VP of a firm that had been outplaced and went seeking advice and fell very short of what she felt was ideal. So she was a wealth manager, recruited me. And of course, meet my boss, met her boss. He and I got along just fine. He said, well, you've got to go and get some credentials first, pass a few tests, get a few licenses, and away we go. And then, of course, as soon as you arrive into a great firm, they'll do all sorts of training and coaching. But at the end of the day, you've got to go find your own clients. And they tell you the most important thing is to find clients to whom you feel you can add the most amount of value. And this was in the 90s. This is just when women were really starting to earn a whole lot more and really starting to pay attention to putting that whole, primarily an investment plan. You know, I ramped it up and I call it a wealth plan, but we're really, really interested in that. And so that's what I did. And one of the investment groups that I worked with had a whole program targeting women. And so I took their program and did a first event one Saturday afternoon in November, way back when. And I had 172, I think, women show up because everybody was so keen. This was kind of a new topic. And so you work that group until you've got clients on board with you. But then as you sit and work with these individual women, there's a new aha. And the new aha is that women are kind of the nurse practitioner in their family. They're expected to know about everybody's well-being and how much knowledge do they have and how much time do they have to go get that knowledge. And so that's when I decided to partner with not-for-profit health-related organizations that were focusing on women. For example, in Toronto, we have a hospital called Women's College Hospital. It's over 100 years old. And so that was a perfect partnership, because they had a lot of tremendous resources and they were really taking the approach on, we want to know more about women, not women as little men. We want to know more about women. The other thing is heart disease is the leading cause of death for women, not cancer. And so did an event with them. And of course, some of my clients came and brought their friends. But every time, so this is kind of a long answer to your question, every time I hosted one of these events, I would charge a nominal amount, like $25 or $50, and it would go to that not-for-profit organization. So then I can show women how that charitable donation enhances their net worth. A very small donation, very small impact, but when you're doing your tax return, it's really nice to have deductions like that to minimize the amount of tax that you're paying. And then also, we also know that once we're in a situation where we give or we share, we feel good. So these women were, starting to understand the whole scenario around net worth and self-worth, charitable giving. And of course, fast forward 30 plus years later, and women have a whole lot more wealth to steward. And of course, as you well know, they're starting to inherit lots of wealth with a whole lot more to come. So it's transformational philanthropy. It's really women's power at its finest, but a lot of women kind of are like, oh my goodness, Now what?
Right. Yeah, it can be overwhelming. And it's interesting because you've been in this business and kind of doing this part of the piece of the program for such a long time. You've seen how, there was already a need for this, whenever you started 20, 30 years ago. And now I feel like that need is just expanded. Like you said, there's women that have built their own wealth. There's a lot of women that are inheriting wealth, especially coming from this baby boomer generation. We're on the estate planning side of things. So that's a lot of what we deal with. And women have we're taking over in the workplace as well. And so there are just a whole bunch of different pieces in there. And most things, whether it's in business or in the health industry, it's really geared naturally towards men. And so I thought it was interesting that you pointed out the fact that for women, it's actually heart disease that is our number one concern. So all of this history, all of this background, it's what inspired you to go out and start this business. And so tell our listeners who may not have heard about Women Worth and Wellness, exactly what type of services, training, and leadership coaching, and what type of things does Women Worth and Wellness provide?
Okay, well, when I started, I started this whole focus in 1992. In 1994, I trademarked the brand. If we go back to my first career, I was with Procter and Gamble, so you know the power of a brand. And
Right.
I also was in a strategic coaching, sort of a group situation where business owners were being coached. And one of the things that they emphasized to the max was your unique ability. Everybody has unique ability. Know what it is, define it, and define it in terms of how you can bring forward that to the max. So the Women Worth and Wellness, a whole idea came from all of that sort of happening all at the same time. But the other thing was, as I spent more time with women, going back to the health component, there was really no point in building a wealth plan if you haven't focused on getting the health scenarios out of the way to begin with. For example, mental health is huge. We know that. And if you don't have the right mindset for your wealth plan, then it's very difficult to have that conversation. We also know that if you are not healthy, you're not going anywhere anytime soon. And so making health the first order of business was really something that I focused on as I started to work with a lot of different people. And then as I developed wealth plans, I built that health aspect into the wealth plan because an excellent wealth plan will have anticipated all sorts of challenges going forward. Number one is retirement. Will you have enough money to support what you want in retirement? What if a critical illness pops up in the interim? Are you protected? Are you going to have to draw down from your investment portfolio? What about a disability? What about premature death? So it really, really became a very holistic brand. And the more people started to realize about the importance of good health and the opportunities that philanthropy present, the more you can circle back and invest back in health as it pertains to what you believe is most important. Another example is Parkinson's, for example. Some families have been stricken with Parkinson's. Now you realize it's like, well, where the heck did that come from? And is this something that's going to affect me? Well, you know what? I really want to start supporting the Parkinson's organization to help them with more research dollars so they can lower the microscope and hopefully make things better for a lot of people going forward.
I love it because I love your holistic approach to women and wealth. And the fact that you've built, I think that missing piece that a lot of people miss is the aspect of really thinking through health. And I love what you just said about that relating directly to philanthropy. If you have a history of breast cancer in your family, if you have a history of Parkinson's or type 1 diabetes, whatever it might be, there are some great opportunities out there for you to use your wealth and your influence to really make a positive impact, not only for other people here, but possibly for your future generations and your family as well. So I think that's really just a very cool, that the holistic approach is definitely something that is needed. And I love that your program has all of that. Would you say that you have an ideal client, Nancy? And if so, or maybe an ideal set of characteristics or a phase of life that someone may be in, what does your ideal client look like?
Well, normally when people engage with a wealth advisor, they're thinking about their investment portfolio. That's triple A1 priority. And certainly it is a priority, but that's not the whole scenario. And so as a wealth advisor, you need to find where that client is coming from in terms of not just their holdings at this point in time, real estate, second properties, whatever. You do a complete inventory. It's what else they would like to invest in. And I'll give you an example. I was lined up for a play in Toronto, and a whole big crowd of people, and out of the blue, this woman looked over and went, "Nancy." And she said, "Oh my God, we talk about you." What? I'm thinking, oh no, because she's saying this in front of other people. Well, what I had done, because sometimes wealth advisors want all their wealth to come to that person to look after. Well, what I had done, which is what they wanted to do, was coach them on how to buy investment real estate. And she said, we ended up buying 3 different properties and we're just so happy with what we did. And that was because you encouraged us to do it and supported us in making it happen. So now, if they were still my clients, we could talk that through to a further extent as it pertains to tax savings that will happen if they think philanthropically. So, there's so many different dynamics, there's so many different personalities. People are so busy focusing on everything that they need to, that as a wealth advisor, you kind of just have to hone it in, but you can only hone in once you have a sense of where they're coming from and what their priorities are, and then keep the dialogue going. Because if you've got some suggestions on how to enhance that, it will only come from you understanding from where they're coming so that you can enhance that.
That makes perfect sense. And I love your example story that you had in there as well. A lot of times, as an advisor, the ripple effect of some of these things that you do, you never even get to know about. So it's neat that you had some client interactions like that. Very cool. So you've been doing this for a while now. As a wealth advisor, what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that you see women in this position making?
Not owning it, not owning the opportunity and the responsibility. It's almost like they pull the blind down, like, oh my goodness, this is too complicated. This is just too much. Oh my goodness, I don't have time for this. Oh my goodness, who am I going to, talk to, whatever. And so the biggest mistake is just not owning it. And women are smart, very, very smart, but very, very busy. But at the end of the day, you're the number one asset. So you need to be your number one agent, and you need to look after yourself to the max, because that's when you're able to not only be your best, but also help others be their best too, which is always what women want to do. I mean, women go out of their way for other people and often forget about themselves. So just owning the responsibility of looking after the greatest asset, which is you, from a health standpoint and a wealth standpoint.
Yes, I love that. And on your website, you have good health is true wealth, which is certainly true. As women, particularly as mothers, we do certainly tend to put, I've got a husband and 4 kids. So,
Wow.
a lot of days I feel like I'm living with work, with my spouse's needs, certainly with my kids' needs. I take care of everybody else. And then I get whatever's left over at the end of the day, whether that's financially, whether that is emotionally, whether that is, my energy, putting my health, my workouts in the background. And so women have that tendency to, much more so than men, to put everybody else first and then take care of whether it's health or getting finances together or getting educated on what their financial options are. We put all of that on the back burner. So for that woman kind of living in that phase of life, what is your best advice? Own it is important, but what is some advice that you could give to help a woman understand that she's got to make some of these things a priority? And here's the key, Nancy, not feel guilty about it.
Oh, definitely. Well, we all know how incredibly successful the Eras Tour was with Taylor Swift. And if
Right.
I had the opportunity to do a tour like that, the theme would be worthy. You are worthy. You are worthy. And just pay attention to how worthy you are and know that in your own head. Like, it's a mindset, because we think about so many different things all the time. And you, with 4 kids, plus a house, plus a husband, that's a challenging a lot of mindset that goes towards others. So never feel guilty. You're absolutely right. Just know that you are worthy, and know that you are worthy of looking after yourself to the very best of your ability. And then you just own it. You own it. because you in doing that, you're going to be a role model to your kids so that they're never going to be riding in the back seat in their lives. They're going to be driving their own lives into the future to the very best of their ability.
That is excellent advice. I would love to take that clip and just post it everywhere for women to see. So, just a couple of questions left. My first one is easy. What else is it that you want our listeners to know? Wisdom that you've learned, services that you offer. What else is it you hope our listeners can take away from this podcast?
Very, very good question. Very, very good question. I think just, the lives that are given to us are gifts. They really are special gifts. And I think just living your life and loving your life every single day is really important. And that's why individually we need to have a lot of conversations with ourselves. Like, am I enjoying doing what I'm doing? If I'm not, how do I step up to this and make some changes respectfully? I'm never suggesting that people behave with anything less than respect. But also, I think women really have tremendous capacity and capabilities. I just would like to see more women really stepping up to that next level and being brave and courageous enough to step up, because we see what in the world is going on. And I think we really do need more women leaders just making a huge difference. Because, well, two examples are Melinda Fridge Gates and Mackenzie Scott. And I'm sure you follow them closely to see what they're doing. But they didn't have to do any of that. And they're doing it in their own way, and obviously providing a lot of support to a lot of organizations. But more importantly, they're setting a new tone for women's leadership with philanthropy and being incredible role models to generations behind them. And what's wrong with that? I think that's exceptionally admirable.
Absolutely. I agree with that. All right. Last question. This might be the hardest one. I'm not sure. Through all the work that you have done over the years, through Women Worth and Wellness, and also as a financial advisor, what would you say you hope your legacy will be?
Well, that's a really, really good question. Really good question. Well, I define myself as a connector and an influencer. And also, anybody I spend time with has to be generous and have a sense of humor. So at the end of the day, the other day I said to my husband, here's a song for my funeral, and that's the Eagles, Take It to the Limit.
I love that.
And so I hope my legacy is one where there's some humor, definitely humor. Like, in other words, she's lived her life. She's really pushed the limits, but obviously she's made a difference as she's gone along. And I've taken on a few changes or a few challenges within the last few years. And I often say people really, really know when things are wrong. And so what you need to do is deal with that wrong. Like, don't accept it. If it's not right, then deal with it respectfully and try to turn that wrong into a right. And so again, it's just, living your life with authenticity and whatever your uniqueness is, stay vertical and keep smiling.
Okay, I'm throwing in one last additional question just because I want to know, because I feel like I'm getting so many great nuggets of wisdom from you. So, through your career and your leadership training, all of these different things, is there a time, tell me about a time, I'm sure there's probably at least one. What is a mistake that you made that you wish, and what's the advice you would go back and give to yourself before that?
Not having been a wealth advisor 20 years earlier, because it's a perfect spot for women to be. And I know the
Yeah.
numbers are still low, like what, 25, 30% max of wealth advisors being female. It is a perfect, perfect role. Really, really wonderful. So satisfying. I mean, obviously, you've got to be smart enough to get all those credentials in place. And once you do, then it's never ending. You can keep on ramping up for even more. So
Right.
you have to be smart, you have to be caring, you have to be diligent, you have to be hardworking, you have to be kind, you have to be a good listener. All of the qualities that women are. It's a wonderful, wonderful career. So I'm sorry I wasn't in it 20 years earlier.
That's great. So if there are any listeners out there, men or women, that are thinking about making the jump, Nancy encourages you to do that. Don't
Oh,
wait. Don't stay
no,
stuck.
no,
That
no,
is
not at all.
That is great wisdom. Well, thank you to all of our listeners for joining us. This has been the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast with your host, Katie Beth Hand. And my guest today was Nancy Griffin. And to connect with Nancy, you can visit womenworthwellness.com or you can email her directly at nancy@womenworthwellness.com. Nancy, you have given us so much fantastic wisdom coming out of this. I know I will take it all to heart, and I know you are very busy. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and share everything with us.
My pleasure, Katie, and you keep up all your great work. Lots of fun.
It's lots of fun.
Thanks for listening to the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast with Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand. If you enjoyed the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. To find out more about Stan and Katie Beth, go to pinnaclelegacylaw.com. You can also find links in the show notes.